Farmers today are facing rising costs, volatile markets, and extreme weather. The Better Way to Farm podcast digs into strategies to help you take control of farm inputs and maximize profit so your farm can thrive for generations. Remember to take advantage of our free resources at abetterwaytofarm.com. Now, from America's Heartland, here's your host.
Welcome to today's episode. We are very lucky and I am super excited. Today, we are going to talk about something that all of us have on our minds and a lot of us wonder what to do with, and that would be the markets. Thank you for tuning in. Rod here at A Better Way to Farm, where we increase yields and improve profits, and that's what we're going to try and help you do today. We have someone who I believe is far more qualified than I to talk about this, and I really appreciate him taking time from his busy schedule. From Right on the Market, I'd like to welcome Roger to the call. Roger, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Rod. I appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We've done it before. You really got on my mind, started sending emails out way before anybody else was reaching out to me. You had caught wind of something going on with the Chinese, and you started putting out information to people to help them make good decisions. So what prompted you to send out some emails over the weekend when most of the people were taking the days off?
That's why we work 7 days a week. We got somebody manning the news wires all the time, literally, except for about 3 or 4 hours in a 24-hour period. But anyway, we had expectations that, China and Trump were going to meet, and then they got dashed, and then they were back on the board, and then discouraged, and then back on the board. But we got to the middle part of last week, it was back on the schedule again that they were going to meet. In the meantime, soybean basis, and I'll also say corn basis, was firming up for no apparent reason. Now, you could say on soybeans, basis was firming up because the harvest was about done, which is normal and no doubt true. But beans, actually, the soybean basis started firming up when harvest began. The only time you have firming soybean basis from the beginning of harvest is when the yields are less than expected. And the market determines that, the size of the crop is going to be substantially less than what it was expected. Well, that wasn't the case this year. Early harvested beans, for the most part, that we heard were better than expected. We had guys having early planted beans 20, 25 bushel more than average yield and substantially better than last year. Now, the later planted beans in Eastern Corn Belt, for the most part, didn't yield nearly as well, but they still weren't as poor as expected given how dry it's been. Basis was firming up and more and more and more and more. And then last week, Drayton, of all places, Drayton, North Dakota, their basis jumped 40 cents in one day. Now, North Dakota is about as far from the water as you can get. And water transportation is the cheapest way to ship grain. And so when the CHS firmed their basis 40 cents in one day in Drayton, North Dakota, which CHS is the largest co-op in North America, agriculture co-op, and probably the largest co-op period in North America. When that basis started firming up and you start putting two and two together, CHS has ports, loading ports in Portland and Seattle, and they own the CHS elevator in Drayton. And if China was going to buy soybeans, they would naturally want to buy them out of the Pacific Northwest because it's so much closer. The freight from New Orleans to China is like $52, and from the PNW, it's like $28 or $29. That was the first serious tip-off that China's probably buying beans. Then at the end of last week, Reuters, not the USDA because they're on holiday, but Reuters reported that China's government buying organization, COFCO, bought 180,000 metric tons of U.S. soybeans to be loaded out of the Pacific Northwest ports. That's about 6.6 million bushels, and that's 3 Panamax vessel shiploads. So the news was supportive, but really I was kind of surprised the market didn't respond more positively earlier this week than what it did. Then we get to Wednesday. Now, the key here, we knew that Trump was going to meet with President Xi on Thursday, but they're in Asia. And Asia, their Thursday is, we're sleeping. When it's daylight in Asia, we're still sleeping. And early yesterday morning, I saw that they were going to meet at 10 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Central time, our Wednesday evening. That led to higher market yesterday, and pretty exciting things happened overnight. Futures rallied on the expectations Wednesday evening of great things to come from the meeting of the presidents, and they did meet at 10 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Central, and the meeting lasted less than 2 hours. They came out of the meeting and didn't say anything. Neither one said, we got a deal, we did a deal, we sold soybeans. They just said, it was a good meeting. And the soybean market fell like a rock. Early Thursday morning, our time, when I say early, I mean like 5 or 6 a.m., it was announced that China would resume soybean purchases from the U.S., but no specifics. That news stopped the decline in soybean and corn prices. And then about an hour after that, Treasury Secretary Bessent announced that China would purchase 12 million metric tons, about 460 million bushels of U.S. beans during the current season. What does that mean? Does that mean this calendar year? Does that, which obviously ends in 2 months? Or does it mean this marketing year, which doesn't end till August 31st of next year? But then he added that China would also agreed to buy 25 million metric tons annually for the next 3 years. Well, we did a little research and translation and getting other news reports of how they reported that. And we concluded that the 12 million metric tons this season means this marketing year. So that news sent corn and soybean futures early this morning to new highs, not only for the day, but for the past 13 months. So for those of you who want to sell your 2025 beans on the high for the year, this is your day, okay? You're there. Now, Rod, the question is, so we're at 13, 14 months high on soybeans. We got this great news that China's going to buy all these beans. And so now what do we do? Well, first thing is we got to ask, what could possibly propel soybeans higher than the news we had today? Well, China bought 8 million metric tons of U.S. beans in the month of November. That would certainly send us to new highs. That's possible, but not likely. Brazil or Argentina could fall into the Atlantic Ocean, and that's possible, but highly unlikely. So what will it take to get, beans substantially higher than where we were here on Thursday? I just named the two things that I can think of that might make it happen. Now, we could say the technicians will come in and keep buying. Well, beans are up almost $1 from where they were 60 days ago. And so the technical picture was already very bullish, and it's more bullish, but it's also, technically speaking, overbought. I think we've made an intermediate high that I just don't see us going higher here in the next 30 days. I don't see any good reason for it. And certainly no reason to make them go substantially higher again, unless China buys 6 to 8 million metric tons in the month of November. Longer term, yes, of course, this is good news. Everyone who thinks China will do what they say they agreed to do, raise your hand. Rob,
you called me pessimistic.
How many hands do you see?
You called me pessimistic 15 minutes ago because I said, I'm not sure I trust the Chinese government. You said, you're so pessimistic.
And justifiably so. I didn't say it. This grain marketing consulting since 1980. And I honestly, I'm not saying they never did, but I honestly can't remember one trade deal they ever did what they agreed to do. That's their culture, okay? They'll do what they have to do when a gun is pointed to their head and say, you either do this or I'm going to pull the trigger. And then they agree to it and they do a little bit toward that goal, but they never finish the business. Never finish the business. And I don't think they're going to here. They're going to buy the cheapest beans that are available. And it just so happens that U.S. beans right now are cheaper and have been cheaper for several months than Brazil soybeans. So I don't expect them to keep it up. So, Rod, the question then is, what should a soybean farmer do? Number one, now listen close to this, guys. You sell all your 2025 beans. You got a 13-month high. How wrong can you be? Not only that, it's pretty close to break even. Now, I know we're not farming to break even. This high for the year is a heck of a lot better than those $9.50 beans and $10 beans that we've been looking at for the past 12 months. So I'd sell all the 2025 beans. I'd either do cash or an HTA contract for deferred delivery if the beans are in the bin. Now, let's go to 2026 soybeans. I'd price all of those that your nerves can stand on a November 2026 HTA contract. I mean, if you're comfortable in pricing 80%, 90% of your expected production, do it. HTA November 2026. And even you guys are going to put them in the bin and sell them sometime in 2027. You sell them in November 26 because when beans prices go down after the 26 crops made, November beans will go down more than the January beans, the March beans, the May beans, the July beans. And so when we're at the bottom and that carry from November to whatever deferred month you want to roll to is at its greatest, that's when you roll. And that'll pick you up 6, 7, maybe 10 cents a bushel. Okay. So, and you say, well, yeah, but Roger, what am I going to do if price of beans go up? All right, ladies and gentlemen, you buy put options. All right. Now, a put option gives you the right, but not the obligation to sell a futures contract. Okay. So if beans would go to $12, I'm talking about November 2026 beans, if they get to 12, you buy an $11 put and it'll cost about 20 cents a bushel. There's 5,000 bushels in an option, so $1,000 will get you an $11 put on November 2026 beans. If beans go up to 12, you buy an 11. When they get to 13, you buy a $12 put for 20 cents a bushel. If they get to 14, you buy a $13 put for 20 cents. If they get to 15, you buy a $14 put for 20 cents. All right. That takes a lot of money. Well, yeah, 20 cents a bushel. But let me finish. What do you think soybeans are going to be next August, September? Okay. Don't forget now, every year Brazil is expected to grow the biggest crop they ever have. And so about 2 weeks from now, that's all you're going to hear. U.S. soybeans will be done. This China deal will be done. And every morning, the first thing you're going to hear, and the weather in Brazil, where they're growing more acres of beans than they ever have before and expected to grow more beans than they ever have before, blah, blah, blah. Every morning for the next 8 months, that's all you're going to hear. They're either growing it, they're harvesting it, or they're marketing it, okay? So that's a constant reminder to us. And then we get the soybeans planted next spring here in the United States, and then they get made in July and August, and down we go. So let's just say they get to $13. November beans get to $13 sometime between now and June. You got your $11 put bought when they got to 12, and you got your $12 put bought when they got to 13. And now it's September of 2026, and November beans are $10. Okay. So, Rod, an $11 put gives you the right to sell soybeans at $11. And now we're talking soybean futures, and the futures are 10. So that $11 put is worth $1 a bushel.
Yep.
Okay. And what'd you pay for it? 20 cents. Yeah. All right. So if you sell that put, you're going to have 80 cents of profit. Well, what's the $12 put worth if beans are at $10? Well, it's worth $2. So you sell it for $2, and what'd you pay for that? 20 cents. All right. So you got $3 of income from $11 put plus the $12 put, and you paid 40 cents total for them. So $3 of gross income from the sale of those two puts at a cost of 40 cents. So my math says that's about $2.60 a profit. So you add that on to your November HTA price of, let's say, $11, just to make the math easy. Okay. And that is $13.60 when the top of the market was about $13, because that's the last put you got bought was a $12 put. And November beans will have to be about $13 to get a $12 put bought for 20 cents.
Right.
So you add the 260 onto your $11 HTA and your 1360, and essentially you're at the top of the market, maybe even above the top of the market. And you had the security rod of having a floor of an $11 HTA on all your beans if you sold that many.
Right.
And that's what we're recommending.
Roger, I appreciate it. Every time I talk to you, I sit back and wonder. I mean, obviously, you've been doing this for 45 years, so you got a skosh of experience. I appreciate your time. For the people that want to talk to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, we got a website, rightonthemarket.com. They're more than welcome to send me an email at rjw1249@rightonthemarket.com. But probably the easiest way, just go to our website, rightonthemarket.com. And if you want information, send us a message. Everything you need to know is on there. And I'll talk to you on the phone. And if I'm not already talking on the phone, give me a call, 937-605-1061. I apologize for my voice, but I've been doing a lot of talking on the phone, as you can imagine.
I'll bet you have. Guys, when you call Roger, you tell him that A Better Way to Farm sent you, and we'll appreciate that. We want him to know that he's getting a little bit of publicity here for the time that he gives us and the amount of garbage he puts up with me calling him and talking to him at different times. And so I'm deeply grateful. Roger, I do thank you for your time. We're going to wrap this up. To all of our people who are listening, guys, we do appreciate you. Thank you, Roger, for your time. And to all of our listeners, we appreciate you, and we really do hope you're having a better day.